What are the best and worst things about the current state of the RPG hobby?
Okay. This one I'm approaching without any preparation. So let's see how it goes. This is the kind of question that, if I was wiser, I'd take some time to think about it, take some time to prepare, avoid some pitfalls of how I might express myself in a way that might be misinterpreted and some people might get offended, or maybe just, rubbing people the wrong way, I guess, is. So, question: what are the best and worst things about the current state of the RPG community and business? Okay. So I think if you watch my other videos by now, you know that my hobbies are very varied. As far as personality type, I like MMA, I like combat sports as well. So that kind of environment, that like an MMA gym, combat sports gym, is a very different type of environment than the hobby store, the local hobby store. Um, Now, okay, I think the hobby, it would be true to say that many years ago there was a lot of socially repressed people in the hobby. If we go back to even the 2010s and so, early 2010s, it wasn't. It was still not this hip, cool thing that it's become. Um, and for me, but we were in this in between phase where, for me, the fact that I was a geek, I could make it work. I'm going, but I'm gonna. This is all set up to better explain the answers to the questions. By the way, for me, because I was maybe, I guess, socially capable, if I may say so. What happened is, it was like the period of the Big Bang Theory, which is a really bad show. But point being that I watched a few episodes, and at some point, like, the nerds meet this character who's kind of like also a geek but cool, and they ask the girl in the group, like, who's not a geek but like whatever. I think Penny's the name, but it might be one of the other girls in the show. I don't know. I think it's Penny, and they ask her, like, how come this guy likes all the things I like, but in his case, you think it's cool? And she says something along the lines of, because on him it's ironic, you know. And so I remember it was this in between phase where it was still hard for a lot of geeks, but for other geeks who are more socially able, who might not look like stereotypical geeks and all that, and nerds, then it almost became like this interesting aspect, because it's silly to say, but it was kind of fearless to say, like, oh yeah, I enjoy those games. And then in a weird way, it was so counterintuitive, but we were at this in between phase where it made you more interesting. Like, oh, really, you like that, and you will say that, you'll just tell us that you like D and D and stuff like that. So it was interesting. Then what happened with the internet, I guess, over the years, the socially conscious aspect of the new generations got in, and then what happened is the people who, okay, what I'm going to say next, there's a lot of things that I agree with the progress that we've made, but I'm just going to be honest about how human beings are and can be, especially when they are repressed socially regarding their own sense of self. In the case of some men, even their sense of masculinity, to be honest, or how they repress it now because they almost think like it's a thing to do, like they're righteous to repress who they are, or they're righteous to, like, they think it's righteous, but deep down it comes from a very twisted place, like the typical good guy, like, oh, why won't this girl date me? I've been nice, and then suddenly they reveal their true self. So I think what's happened is, look, I love our hobby, and I don't mean to disparage anyone, but it is a hobby that can attract people who have a gap in their lives. And so through role playing, and this can be good and bad depending on how you handle it, like anything else in life. Um, food keeps you alive, but eating too much food will not be good for you either. So, some people have become more socially skilled through role playing. Other ones have, through role playing, like, filled gaps in their real life that maybe they should have addressed in their lives. So then we come to the socially conscious era of the internet, where Sony, and look, this is true even of things that I morally agree with, but you can just parrot whatever it is correct to say and you're in. So you find yourself with a hobby that has traditionally been with people who have no social skills, stereotypically, overwhelmingly, not always, but and people would say, "Oh, but it's a social game." Yeah, but of outcasts who gather together. Even I, when I was younger, like it took me a while to have any sort of social skills. Like, so my point is, I'm talking when I was already like early 30s by the time But traditionally, geeks were outcasts who got together, and everyone understood. Look, we ain't got no social skills. We're gonna hang out together. We're gonna have fun with the things we like. That in the past would get people bullied or ridiculed, and now suddenly they were starting to be more accepted. And then, um, as you have this whole moral revolution of people being more socially conscious, but then what happens is the internet started creating these mantras, um, like say this to prove you're part of the group. I remember one time when I with one of my female friends, and her boyfriend was there, and many people were there, and friends of hers that I had never met. I mentioned very passingly that I never used the word feminist to describe myself because I found that that word has too many different meanings for different people. And now, bear in mind, she often talked about feminism. She often talked about like lots of her ideas, and I've so far had always agreed with her. Not just her ideas about equality and all that. I always agreed with her. But when it came the time to say like I don't say that I'm a feminist because to me that word means too many different things, and I like for words to be clear. If I say I'm something, I like for people to understand what that means. Um, and so to me that word was not useful anymore, and that's many years ago already. Um, and you could not believe how difficult it was for them to comprehend. And everyone ganged up on me. Like I really mean it. Like I was there to help her move to her and boyfriend to her new apartment. And look, they're amazing friends still to this day. But I just mean the effect it had to learn that I was not simply like going parroting like, oh, I am a feminist, and I just went like, well, I don't use that term because to me has too many different meanings, and everyone trying to tell me what it actually means and why I should just say that I am, and why wouldn't I say it, and it became this whole thing, and sometimes like, you do realize you're all ganging up on me, and then even that notion was ridiculed that I would be ganged up on. Well, cool, it's not what it is. I was like, well, it's been going on for a while now, you know. So that's when I started. It started sinking in that people just parrot they just need to parrot whatever needs to be said, and they're in, and they're accepting, and part of the good group, and so now their interests have become cool, and they have a way to be accepted in a group without any true social skill, any true self-reflection. Like when I was younger, I used to think like, oh, people either like me as I am or they're not worth my time. But what happens as well is that when you're focused on yourself, you do things that are unpleasant to other people, and that's something that I had to realize over time. Like I kind of realized, okay, there's something that's good about considering other people. The things I say, the things I do. It's not being fake to consider how other people feel, and so I had to kind of like learn these things. But for a lot of people, they don't even need to go that far to have that self reflection, to have that insight. They just parrot whatever needs to be said now. They just see, okay, what's the latest mantra of morality? What can I copy paste on my online profile and such? So you find yourself with people who never really worked on themselves when they should have. And I'm sorry to say, it's a hobby that is overwhelmingly has this issue. People who are not self-aware, who will project through characters, who will like it's really weird sometimes. Like it used to be like, Anyway, I don't want to get too much into it, but or give too concrete examples because it might detract from what I'm trying to say. But overwhelmingly, there's people like in this hobby. You've had people training the hobby to compensate for something they're lacking in their lives. Like the guy who never goes out but plays this guy who keeps going out in clubs in a Shadowrun game, stuff like that. And then he wants to role play like the whole night being in a nightclub and say, well, do you want to just go for drinks instead of playing Shadowrun? How about that? And they're like, no, what do you mean? We're having fun. I'm like, well, we spent like over an hour role playing that you're in a bar now. If I'm playing Shadowrun, I kind of want like I want it to be kind of like an action movie, right, or something. what we're doing here, we could just go out for drinks. And, this sounds something controversial in the early 2000s when I said that in a group of geeks. So that's the state of the game, I think, because then what you have is, it used to be in the early 2000s, like any other hobby, like if you have veterans of the game, the young will gather around the veterans, and the veterans will tell their stories and share their wisdom. But now you have like um, the veterans feeling, I think, rejected by the new generation. The new generation seeing the veterans as, because you're not repeating my mantras here, you're not, you are obviously the enemy, and so you have like a culture at war. And then what do you have? You have a lot of games that are just like indie games, where the soul of the hobby is, because the big companies, there's no soul to them. Like where the soul of the game is, there's a lot of time wasted just taking jabs at each other. It's just it, games that, for example, like, oh, if you're a bigot, don't play this game. But like, this game is maybe about something that, like, the cover has like a representation that a bigot would never pick up. They would never be interested in the game in the first place. So it's a warning that's just meaningless. Or on the other side, like, oh, this game is not for those social justice warriors. And then the indie scene, where the soul of the hobby is at war with each other. So that's what happens. You have like two sides at war. The popular games are soulless, or like just preachy, I guess, sometimes, or but mostly soulless is mostly the problem. So you have a hobby divided. You have a hobby that's divided with people who are not good at communicating certain notions or ideas, and then you have a lot of moral panics. You have a lot of moral panics because some people, again, who have not worked on themselves, have very strong feelings about everything. And if subject matters make them uneasy, they will go haywire and ballistic. And like, if they think that if a book addresses a topic that makes them uncomfortable, it means the book is evil and the creators are evil and the people who worked on it are evil. They think that talking to other people in the hobby, if their friends told them that person is bad, they think that they are bad if they talk to them. I think we've come to and this is not just a hobby, but I think it's true of just a culture overall, where any centrist will find themselves like called out as the opposite extremist from each side of the spectrum. If you don't adhere to like your side, you're outcast. Yeah, which Grim Jim has made a lot of videos about that, by the way. Jim, in fact, if any of yours come to mind, I think it could be a good idea to link them. I don't know if you do it in the screen or description, or maybe you don't have to do that if it's extra work, but just an idea. Yeah, so it's just a sad state. The state of the hobby is sad, and I don't really I don't think, I used to be naive and think we must be about to turn a corner, but I think that's what it is. And to me, it's insanity, because if I go back to my other hobby, which is mixed martial arts, and I watch mixed martial arts and all that, to me, it's like this guilt by association, all that. Like, I don't think it's healthy. Who do you follow on Twitter, stuff like that? First of all, you might follow someone just to keep tabs on them, not necessarily because you agree with everything they say. But also, you might partially agree with some stuff and disagree with other stuff. That's perfectly fine. But like, if I were to check the moral virtue of every single athlete that fights in mixed martial arts, I would never watch another mixed martial arts event again in my life. And now there's also very good individuals, very good fighters. They're good people. They have foundations that help the poor, and they help other countries. They build wells in Africa. Like, and that's a very interesting thing about people who have that violence in them, but also the capacity to help. But when they step in the cage, they're facing someone else who wanted the same thing as them. They wanted to go through that experience. They didn't impose it on other people, and then they help people with the money and the fame they make. Others, well, there's sad stories of spousal abuse and all that. And so again, but in real life, like, look, do you drink Coca-Cola? Because they have removed water from wells in Africa, in India. Sorry, like whatever institution or big corporation you follow, of course, it comes with like obscene things. That's all. It's even why I try to not update my phone often. Like my cell phone, I try to keep my like for years and years and years, because I know what goes into those batteries. I know what goes into those cell phones, and how people suffer. So like, I don't need a new phone every year. I really don't. Um, so yeah, so you're having people like fight over the virtue of a company. For example, Wizards of the Coast. Like, oh, I don't know. Like, recently they made Aragorn from Lord of the Rings black in the Magic the Gathering cards for Lord of the Rings. And for a short moment, all the geeks were on the same side when it came, mostly, except some people were too obsessed with being at war with the other side. But yeah, like all the cultural battles set aside to agree that Wizards of the Coast were bad people. They tried to take the open gaming license away. They sent the Pinkerton to a fan's house because he had received some cards by accident ahead of time and made a YouTube video about it. All those things, and then all it takes is like, okay, they made Aragorn black, and there's three groups of people, I guess. There's the purists, there's the racists, and then there's the people who want inclusivity, and they encourage the change of old settings to accommodate this. Now, racists, of course, can go screw themselves. That goes without saying. Now, the purists and the I guess the inclusivists are at war with each other, and the inclusivists are calling the purists. They're mixing them up with the racists, and the purists are finding all sorts of things to say back to the inclusivists. Is that the name I gave the other group? You know, whatever counter argument they might have. Like, in the meantime, everyone's forgetting. Like, who cares? Did you all forget how Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro, keeps trying to screw you over? Shouldn't you all agree? Like, don't complain. Yeah, my position is, don't complain because you shouldn't give them more money anyway. Who cares what they do? Or don't defend them because I know that you think you're standing for inclusion and all that, but you're actually defending Wizards of the Coast again. You're going to encourage people to buy their crap, and Wizards of the Coast does not deserve any of the fans' money at this point. So it's very complicated. It's very messy, and I think there's some people who just thrive on that conflict. They just thrive on that conflict. They cannot let it go. It is their identity. And I have gone also in many other videos, in my channels and all that. I've gone about the fact that, as someone who's put myself in danger to help people in the past, in my life, it might be an unpleasant situation, but you come out of it feeling good about yourself. Like, you put yourself in danger to save someone, but then you feel like you had a reason to be there that day. You feel like you contributed to the greater good through the internet, calling out evil people, or evil people. Just whoever you decide is not part of your tribe, gives you that feeling of having been good, of having contributed to the greater good without actually putting yourself in any sort of risk. And in the meantime, you might just be destroying someone else's life. Like, I myself know for a fact that even if someone has aberrant opinions about things that I care about strongly, like, um, you know, like, I would not want them to lose their job and their ability to feed their family. Like, how is that good? So when I see people like, oh, don't hire this person, like, I mean, unless they did something like, you know, okay, if they're a serial killer or something, or they're actually really, really, really problematic for real. But it's just like, I don't know, like, the slightest thing you see, like, people trying to destroy a writer's or creator. I mean, there we go. James Isworld has done many videos on that happening to him. So it's just crazy to me how this is a hobby at war. This is a hobby of people who hate each other, and that is more important to them than the hobby they share. And then they go like, why wouldn't you talk about all these things online in the hobbies online community, all these important moral things? And to me, I think, like, look, if I wanted to argue about politics and morality and goodness and what I think is better for the world, I'm not going to do it under my, like, cartoon avatar account created for role-playing games. Like, it's silly. Like, am I going to start talking about this or that war or if I'm like for or against abortion under my like Crimson Hound like account, it makes no sense to me. It's not appropriate. It's like that's serious subject matter. If I'm going to dwell into those things, I'm going to create an account for that. That's more appropriate. But people mix everything up, and then to me, what happens then is like people who argue about these things. This is the weird part. They don't go to outside the hobbies bubble to argue about it. They don't go on the news page. I mean, James Desborough does that, but he has like a writer's profile, not a character profile, not a specific, you know. But what I mean is, overall, a lot of people have like basically accounts for their game or their actual play, or whatever. But then they don't go. The thing is, for example, if they want to talk about the war in Ukraine, they don't go to the news pages to discuss it. They kind of discuss it and argue it within the hobby. So to me, it's like you go out of your way to find someone who shares that hobby with you, which is still very, you know, and then you go out of your way to find what you have different with someone else in the hobby and argue with them and create war in your hobby instead of just doing it in the world at large where it would make more sense, right? And I think that comes from the idea that we're gonna save the hobby, we're gonna clear the hobby. So you have one side, we're gonna clear the hobby of SJWs, and the other side is like we're gonna clear the hobby of bigots or whatever, and then like it's just insanity. So the hobby's in a really ugly place. Really, it's more popular than ever, but it's like the Dungeons and Dragons is just soulless right now, and they do like bits of progressiveness here and there to be defended by people who should, by all accounts, be against them because they're like they've been acting like an evil corporation. If we ever like towards their fans, normally all corporations act evil, but normally they try to at least pander to their fans, you know. But no, they'll send Pinkerton to a Magic the Gathering fan. So it's just I don't know. It's just very sad. This is my centrist hot take. The hobby's in a bad place. It's ugly. And let's see. Let me read the question. The best things about the hobby. I guess it's easier to play online. Yeah, it's easier to play going online with people if you can find a group to play with in person. That's the good thing about right now. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for watching.